Hi everybody, happy day 2. I'm Missy Matthews alongside Mike Prisuta. We are now in round 3 of the draft. The Steelers not picking in round 2 with the 83rd overall pick of the 2025 draft. The Steelers go with a running back, Kaleb Johnson out of Iowa. And you had a chance to talk to Steelers President Art Rooney II on Steelers Nation Radio. Feels like maybe a few hours ago, but he did say he felt like it would be a running back, maybe a quarterback at this point.
Yeah, feels like a few days ago at this point,
right.
But man, is this worth the wait, Missy? I mean, everybody knew that the Steelers were interested in a running back. You look at the number of pre-draft visits and all the attention they paid at that position, and you look at the way the roster's set up. Jaylen Warren is not a small back. He's compact, he's physical, he's powerful, but he's 5'8", 215 pounds. He's more, or at least to this point in his career, has been a third down back, a complementary back. Kenneth Gainwell from Philadelphia is kind of the same physical skill set and the same type of role. Kaleb Johnson is a monster, and I was definitely hoping, expecting them to address running back, but hoping it would be a big back, a hammer guy. Johnson is 6'1", 224 pounds, and he's the quintessential one-cut outside zone guy. He puts his foot in the ground, he turns it upfield, and he takes off. His statistics were ridiculous this past season, Missy. 240 carries, 1,537 rushing yards, a 6.4 average, and 21 rushing touchdowns. And the thing that people might not be aware of if they're not Big Ten football fans and they don't follow Iowa closely, and hey, if you don't, I get it. This was not a dynamic offense. This was a team that struggled to throw the ball. Dane Brugler of The Athletic broke it down this way. Kaleb Johnson Iowa was 130th out of 133 FBS teams in running into stacked boxes.
That's bad.
In other words, Kaleb Johnson was the guy. The other team knew he was the guy. Everybody in the stadium knew he was the guy. Everybody watching on TV knew he was the guy. And he didn't just survive that, Missy, he flourished.
And I think you go back to this being a position of need. You had Najee Harris leaving during free agency, Jaylen Warren signing his thing, but also adding Kenneth Gainwell. But when you look at the pre-draft visitors, I know we talked about this last night with the selection of Harmon in the first round. The guys that they brought in, there were 9 running backs for pre-draft visits brought here to Pittsburgh. Kaleb Johnson was one of them.
Yeah, and they had all kinds. They had some of the smaller guys, and Johnson was one of the bigger guys. We're watching this in here and counting it down to the pick, and I think all of us were kind of hoping it would be Kaleb Johnson, right? Or a guy with his physical skill set. And we're looking at Houston. Does Houston need a running back? Does Indianapolis need a running back? Cincinnati, oh my God, it's only a couple picks away. And then when we found out it's Kaleb Johnson, I don't know how they reacted upstairs, but there was euphoria in here because it's not just a position of need, it's the type of guy, very similar to Harmon that way. The right type of player to fill that need, a very good fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And oh, by the way, he's already wearing a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform.
That's true.
They're replicas.
Doesn't have to change colors.
So this is a big deal. And, Kaleb Johnson is not just a runner. Talking about, he didn't do a lot in the passing game, but according to Daniel Jeremiah of NFL.com and the NFL Network, Kaleb Johnson is, quote, aware in the passing game. He can protect. He can catch it well. He doesn't do those things a ton because he's so good at running the ball. But as Jeremiah put it, quote, he has value in the passing game both ways. Daniel Jeremiah is also of the opinion that Kaleb Johnson at 6'1" and 224 pounds, Missy, DJ thinks he could bulk up to 240 and not lose any of his running prowess. So this is a big deal.
Absolutely, and I think this goes back to, as we heard from Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan earlier in the week prior to the start of the draft, is knowing what your needs are, letting the draft come to you, not being able to move too much, knowing you only had 6 total picks. They did not have one in the second round. We joked we could just play some DK Metcalf highlights, similar to whenever we didn't have a first-round pick because of the trade with Minka Fitzpatrick, and that was sort of your first-round draft pick for that year in 2020. But the Steelers did get that wide receiver that they wanted. D tackle was handled last night today the running back position, and they still have 4 more picks tomorrow. It does feel like forever because there was such a gap from the first pick that they had in the draft till this one because of not having the second one. But we have seen DK Metcalf in the building. He's been working out with the team for phase 1 of the offseason program, and we know what he's going to be bringing to the table. Kaleb Johnson is speaking with the media right now. They're going to be wrapping that up shortly, and we'll have a chance to hear from one of the Steelers' offensive coaches to break down why he was a guy that they coveted, a guy that they did their homework on, and why he is now going to be a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And great for him that Hall of Famer Lynn Swann was able to go to the podium and read his name. That's one of those things that he will always remember.
Yeah, and I think the pick of Kaleb Johnson is kind of symbolic of what this whole draft is all about. A lot of people perceived it to maybe be lacking in the true stars, that can't miss, big timers, but a lot of good players. A lot of good players in the first round, second round, third round. I know personally, Missy, one of the reasons I was hoping they might be able to trade into the late second round or the early third round was to get a guy such as Kaleb Johnson. I'll use the old cliche. I never thought he'd be here this long, but that's because there are so many running backs, and it all comes down to what the teams value in terms of how they stack them. Dane Brugler of The Athletic, we quote him a lot in these little hits because I think he's really good at what he does. He had Kaleb Johnson as the number 3 running back available behind Ashton Genty and Omarion Hampton, who
went yesterday.
Who were kind of considered, the cream of the crop,
right,
and the 2 first-round guys. Brugler had a second-round grade on Kaleb Johnson. He had him ranked higher than Travion Henderson of Ohio State, Quinshon Judkins of Ohio State. These are really good players. And there's been a lot of running backs taken, but honestly, other than Genty or Hampton, I'm not sure the Steelers could have found a better fit.
And staying where they were, knowing that they didn't have a second-round draft pick to move into the second round would have cost them a lot, whether it was this year, next year, or a combination of both. We did talk briefly about Derek Harmon, the Steelers' first-round draft pick last night. He did come here to Pittsburgh briefly today. I do want to go to the statement from team president Art Rooney II. One of those bittersweet moments for him, the highs of highs and the lows of lows for a young man, a 21-year-old dealing with just really difficult things. And I think, the fact that he came here, was able to meet with the Steelers' top brass of Mr. Rooney, Mike Tomlin, and Omar Khan, had some family members with him. Difficult to see, but knowing that it is a good moment, but a hard moment with the passing of his mother.
We were in here doing the hit last night when he talked to the local media, but he mentioned that when he got off the conference call, he was going to go to the hospital to see his mother, who was on life support. And when I heard that, I was amazed that he even did the call. I mean, this is a guy that I can't imagine what he's going through, but the way he's handling it. Art Rooney II talked about that a little bit with me today as well on Steelers Nation Radio and the Steelers Audio Network. Can't imagine having to deal with something such as that, but from a football standpoint, the Steelers are elated that they have him while they hurt for him.
Absolutely, and I think, just what he has gone through in being the type of person, not only just the football player that he is, but the type of human being. I'm sure his mom extremely proud of the young man that he did become and will become, and with a new chapter beginning here in Pittsburgh. Rookie minicamp will be taking place in a few weeks, so we'll have a chance to have him back here in Pittsburgh, get a chance to talk to him and allow him to have this time to grieve and go through that process with his family. So, a very different take on a draft day story for somebody like him, but was great to see that he was able to come here with some of his family members, maybe a bit of a distraction in some form or fashion. Obviously, our hearts go out to them for that. You did mention you talked to Art Rooney II on Steelers Nation Radio about their first round pick and heading into today, day 2. This was prior to Kaleb Johnson becoming a Steeler. What else did you take away from your conversation with him?
Well, some interesting stuff. The quote that you referenced, he said, looking ahead to round 3, at some point we'd like to get a running back here and maybe a quarterback. Now, quarterback is still on the table, but
you only have 2 still.
Yeah, and they're going to go to camp with 4. It's not necessarily a priority. The way they're looking at it, according to Art Rooney II, if we draft a quarterback, and we still might, probably not somebody that's going to start for us this year. It's going to be somebody that'll be developing and may play down the road. So it's not, as far as I'm concerned, not like somebody that's going to have a big impact on the season if we draft a quarterback. So I still think that might happen. Art Rooney also had a thought or two on a quarterback who might impact the season, who is not yet on the roster.
Okay.
Regarding the selection of Derek Harmon on the first round, not selecting a quarterback on the first round, Art Rooney said, quote, "We really did not factor whether Aaron's coming or not into that. Look, if we draft a quarterback, and we still might, probably not somebody that's going to start for us this year. As for Rodgers, quote, we're still kind of getting the same signals we've been getting recently that he does want to come here. We may get word soon. Obviously, with things starting to crank up here, the offseason program, etc., if he's coming, we'd like to get him here soon for some of that." So kind of status quo, but there's been a lot of assumptions, and I think Art just kind of confirmed they're anticipating that Aaron Rodgers is going to be here this season.
Right. That did not make me think differently than what we heard from him just a few weeks ago in West Palm Beach at the owners' meetings. We do know that Kaleb Johnson has wrapped up his call with the media. We are expecting offensive coordinator Arthur Smith to take the podium upstairs very shortly. I am sure he will be glowing and very excited about this selection. You know, I think sometimes, especially for the coaches, so much work does go into it. You don't have too much say when it comes to the actual drafting, but you're always rooting for your side of the ball to get a player in terms of the new pieces you're adding to your puzzle.
Oh, new toys to play with for Arthur Smith, right?
Absolutely.
And, oh, by the way, another Brugler stat, Kaleb Johnson is very familiar, not just with running into the stack boxes thing, but multiple tight ends, which is an Arthur Smith staple. Arthur Smith likes to use multiple tight ends. Iowa did that, worked with two tight ends or more, 62.5% of its snaps in 2024. That was number 2 in FBS.
All right.
So Arthur's got a lot to talk about here.
And you know how much he loves to utilize tight ends in his offense. Let's head upstairs to Arthur Smith.
Really excited about getting Kaleb Johnson in here. A really explosive running back that we spent some time with on a 30 visit here. One of the more instinctive backs I've watched in a couple of years coming out of the draft. Perfect fit, you know, regardless of whatever run scheme you're running. He ran multiple at Iowa. Really impressive as a volume runner as the game went on. I think one of the more impressive stats you've seen as a fourth quarter, what he averaged in the fourth quarter, I believe it was over 5 yards per carry. It might have been closer to 6. We think he's a great culture fit. Obviously, extremely fired up to get Kaleb in here.
Questions? Arthur, what did you learn about him during the visit that maybe you didn't know coming in?
Yeah, you know, this process, you know, which I appreciate, which I like, you know, we travel on the road. I mean, we're very present at pro days and senior bowls, and then we use the visits. And so Kaleb was here on a visit. And, you know, as a coach, you get into the process. The scouts, these guys have been looking at him for years, so we're kind of later on it, but you're trying to get to know the person. Obviously, the tape, you can evaluate the skills on the tape, but really is getting to know the person. And I always want to know, and the way I look at it, especially in this role, is, all right, what's the vision? What's the plan if we take this player? How does he learn? I mean, that's what a lot of it is getting to know the person and Kaleb, and just a really impressive person, obviously a great football player. And really how he sees how, you know, that's what everybody learns differently. So when you take these guys and we meet with them, and as I go through a scheme, and you're really just hearing them talk and seeing where they're at, whether it's protection with the back and what their history is. And obviously at Iowa, they were pretty run heavy, and he ran multiple schemes, but really think he fits in no matter what run scheme you want to operate.
I'm sorry.
No, yeah.
The desire to get a running back, is it you want to create that kind of tandem that you had last year with Jalen and now this guy, maybe?
It'll be different. I mean, I just, you know, every year I've been here, I've never been one that, you know, compares. Just, you know, this is the setup we had at this stop. Or what, you know, generally you've got 500 plus carries in a regular season, right? You're talking about 1,100 snaps. You know, you'd like to be on the plus side of 500. It means you're in more 4-minute. So you got let's just leave it at 500 carries to divvy up, and that's kind of where you're at. And then obviously losing Naj, I mean, Naj for 4 years here, he was very durable, and that's a lot of missing carries. And then obviously we got some carries, especially early out of Justin. So it's just the way they fit, and guys will roll. And there's a lot of good group of guys we have in that running back room. So we're obviously excited. And, no matter if you're running the football or the pass game, we need to get more explosive, and this is an explosive runner, and that's where he'll certainly help.
That bit that you mentioned there at the end of your first answer, was that sort of the differentiating factor to decide to go running back here, even with the lack of numbers at QB? And do you have the QBs on the board that were dropped for these?
Oh, I respect the way you work that in. I'm going to keep this about Kaleb, and trust me, I get it. No, I mean, look, here's the thing. I know Coach and Omar, Mr. Rooney have spoken about the quarterback, but, we're talking about Kaleb and just the way we're looking at backs and why we're so excited about Kaleb, and that's kind of where my focus has been, and that is my job. I mean, Kaleb Johnson is a Pittsburgh Steeler, and we're really excited about him and what he can bring to the offense and the team.
Do you see him as a 3-down?
How can they work together, Jalen and Kaleb? How can they play off of each other?
Again, that just depends on game and where Caleb's at. One thing Jalen does, which is extremely valuable, is how much you trust him in protection and those critical possession downs. Doesn't mean a young guy can't do it, but sometimes they can take something off his plate early on. Everything's new to him. The rookie years are long for these guys, and obviously if something happens to Jalen or somebody else, I mean, his role can expand. So, as you say, you got 17 games. Obviously, we're hoping to play more than that, and there's a lot of carries you can divvy up, but they'll fit off. I mean, Jalen's, like I said, we're really excited about where Jalen's at coming into this spring as well, and where Kaleb really, like I said, he'll add hopefully an explosive element to the offense.
Arthur, when you look at Iowa's offense, one of the most run-heavy teams in college football, one of the teams that use tight ends some of the most, and then also a lot of wide zone, outside zone.
Mm-hmm.
How, when you have something that sounds a lot like your offense, how does that help in your projection of how a player might fit with your team?
Yeah, and then I pivoted. I mean, last year we didn't run as much true outside zone. A lot of it we kind of, and that was due to just some of the familiarity with some of the players we had. You try to adapt to the strengths of the players. You don't want to be rigid. So that was a lot. We ran a lot less wide zone, outside zone, whatever you want to call it, than I had previous couple of years. I think Kaleb can do it all. I mean, he ran plenty of gap schemes at Iowa, and you got to change it up. Again, you don't want to get stale, but he is a really good, whether you're talking wide zone or tight zone runner.
Does picking Kaleb here kind of reinforce the idea that you want to have a run-first offense? Still plenty of stuff to take shape, but does that suggest that's the direction this offense is going?
Brooke, I get it. I mean, when you've had the privilege to coach somebody like Derek, and again, you're trying to play to the strengths, and some of the things we did in 22, where we were damn near a service academy, the way we ran the ball, just you use what you got and try to play the strengths. But that's not necessarily, we've obviously added DK. We want to be explosive offense. I think balance is the right word. It doesn't mean that every game you're going to be exactly, hey, we're going to be 35 carries, 30 passes. Again, whatever way we have to, operate to win the game, and really that's the thing we want to be. We want to be more explosive. And again, years I've had it where you've got guys that can rip off explosive runs that may open up more things in the play pass or the keeper game or even the action screens. But if you don't have that, then you got to operate a different way. And with this offense, we got some returning players, but we've obviously Kaleb is a new offensive piece we've added along with DK. And so we got to get DK the ball as well. So as the season keeps building, I mean, it's ongoing as we add to the roster. But we're just excited about this player and how he fits really overall. So I look at it as an explosive weapon.
Two more here. When you have a player with good instincts, does that normally mean a quicker transition because of
Usually.
the way they're?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the process that you want to do your homework is where are we starting at when this guy gets here in a couple weeks in rookie camp. That certainly helps. That's a great trait to have, football intelligence, instinctive awareness. That's what you're trying to build. You would love to have a 11 guys with high football intelligence.
Last one. Martha, you mentioned a couple of times about explosiveness. Why was that so important this offseason to improve that area of your offense?
Well, I think regardless of your scheme, and it just where you're not just plotting, where you're just 2, 3, 4 yards and multiple 3rd and 2s and 3rd and 4s. I mean, you'd like to get those chunk plays. I mean, that's just history will tell you that, whether you want to look at advanced analytics or regardless of how that, you look at the game, that opens up and it usually produces more touchdowns, and that's what we're looking for. It just, at times, probably the middle point of the season, we were hitting some explosives, a little bit with how people were playing us and the way we're attacking, but we got to have more ways to get those chunk plays. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, Arthur Smith, Steelers offensive coordinator, talking about their 3rd round pick, 83rd overall, Kaleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa, talking about the explosiveness he wants to see in this offense, a guy who can do that, and also mentioning, as we're calling it, their 2nd round pick of this draft, DK Metcalf, adding him to the mix as well.
Yeah, Johnson in particular, he's not a burner in terms of his just clock stopwatch speed, but he can break big runs. He can hit home runs. And what really resonated with me listening to Arthur Smith a moment ago, he talked about Kaleb Johnson's ability as a volume runner, how he gets better as the game goes on, the more touches he gets, how much better he is in the 4th quarter. And Missy, isn't that the value of a big back, right? You get the lead in the 4th quarter,
wear
and
him
then you
down.
grind that clock. And by the end of the game, they don't want to tackle Jerome Bettis anymore.
Right.
They don't want to tackle Le'Veon Bell anymore. It's a war of attrition, and Kaleb Johnson can fight that. One of the things I think people tend to lose track of in evaluating a draft is it's not who got the best players, it's who got the best fits. Mm-hmm. And I can't imagine a better fit than Kaleb Johnson and the Steelers.
And as we said, not having that 2nd round pick, being able to stay where they were in round 3. 4 more picks tomorrow. As Omar Khan said earlier in the week, they still need to get to 90 guys on their roster. We know quarterback sitting with 2 players. They like 4 as they head to Latrobe. There's still time for that as well. And I am very interested to see what happens in terms of day 3 and what positions and what players are added to this roster.
Well, they've checked off defensive tackle.
Yep.
They've checked off running back.
Yep.
4 picks left. Wouldn't surprise me in some way, shape, or form. Cornerback, wide receiver, another defensive tackle,
quarterback,
and a quarterback.
Right.
And not necessarily in that order, but
sure.
Do what you've done to this. Let the board come to you, and then get the guy you like at that spot.
Yeah, and it's worked out for them in their favor in terms of defensive line and running back deep in this draft, so being able to not have to reach to get a guy at a position that you do need. So it's been an enjoyable day 1 and day 2.
Yeah, it has.
It's been long,
didn't it? Watching those teams, one pick after another, and 5 away, 4 away, 3 away.
When it's 50 away, it's not so exciting.
No.
But it did get more exciting as we got closer and closer. We hope you enjoyed our coverage of day 1 and day 2 of the 2025 NFL Draft. Stay plugged into Steelers.com and the Steelers official mobile app tomorrow for rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for joining us.